Hello everyone, welcome. I am newtmechanist, I'm the proto-nanotype, and today we're going to be continuing the game development project. I see that a couple of people have already joined us. Let me just verify here, everything's coming through. Audio-wise, everything seems fine. We have some new detection systems for audio problems. Let's see if they work. Hello Fan, hello Squinick, hello Tass. We have a special surprise in order for today where I am going to, as is tradition, rip up some floorboards and rebuild something. Because allow me to show you the problem. I would say, hey, let's check in with the kitty cats, but they are all hiding. Sky is getting a drink. Sammy is off the end of the white table. We can see Sherbet and we can see Sky over there. Sherbet is deciding on a litter box. Oh. Someday I may actually set that up. I've actually been tempted to switch a couple of the cameras around because none of them really have a spot in the play area. They pass through it. I can off stream. Sometimes Mason will sleep in that box, or some of them will sit up on the footstool or something like that. But that's not a high traffic zone. I might try to figure out a way to get the little the food and drink area on stream, but I need to also make sure that it's not, a horrible looking wreck every time. This guy is a messy eater. But yeah, here let me show you the problem. So normally in Godot, if you move a script or a resource or an image or something like that around, it goes to the project and it updates any references to that script or similar. So, say I've got this entity file, and if I move it, then anything that says, hey, I use the entity script, like the actual script file, it's located here, or I use the class that is defined by that file, then it knows where to find it. Except if you do something like this. If a resource, seemingly only in this case, if a resource contains a reference to a class object that is in an array and a value is entered in that address, the path to that script, doesn't change here. And that's a problem. Because if there is a value in this one, say the player one, if the player one doesn't load properly, then the catalog won't, or I'm sorry, the player factory won't load. If any of the things loaded into the catalog don't load properly. The catalog doesn't load. Everything just falls to pieces if these references break. And if I want to keep them that way, that means none of the code can move. And that's going to be a maintenance problem. Having come to that terrible realization, that means that we need to change away from the resource building blocks. So let me show you again. Buttons. We had been doing stuff like this. I have this nice little box on the right and I can load stuff into it. But this leads to the problem. Every time we do something like this, that is another place that problem can crop up. And while that's a Godot engine thing, that's something that they might fix in an update. In theory, that's something that if I was really ambitious, I could go in and make a custom build of the editor that might fix that problem. I don't wanna. Additionally, in facing that problem, I thought of a... no, Tess, the whole point is to avoid hard coding those. It's that in this particular circumstance, the editor doesn't save you from that. Normally it does. Normally it hides that. And that was the whole reason that I was doing this, was to avoid having to go in and say, this file is the enemy that I want you to load. I don't want that done anywhere that I can avoid. So instead, what we're going to do is in this, right now, this is the only reason, this will ultimately be the only reason that we need to have, that we currently need to have the resource structure, is so that I can socket things like this. But I don't actually need that. Everything that defines each of these weapons is a variable. Yeah. I have that on screen now. It's just a matter of catching it when it does. There's some little red dots that appear when it goes scrambly. I need a good place that I can put them that it will be very, very visible, but as one of the areas that Voicemeeter isn't good in is being able to manipulate the UI to your use case. I wonder if there's a way that I could do that. Anyway. So instead, what I'm considering is during this process, I could have separate script files for now that amount to big ol' arrays that construct themselves. For example, templates, we go to player. This is everything that defines the player. There's nothing special about it. If I were to go in and say its catalog name is player, it uses the player movement type, and it spawns at 0. Get rid of that. That can't be there. It spawns at 0, then we're good. That's everything that's needed. Well, you know, the animation information and whatnot. So to get this working, I will need to set up an object that does keep track of the textures. Textures should be fine because they are one-stage things. Will I put the game on Steam? That is the goal, fan. Or at least, that is the current initial goal. Am I an engineer? If I wanted to be pretentious, I could say I'm a software engineer. There are physical engineers that get touchy about that. I will accept game developer. Even though it still feels grandiose for what we're accomplishing currently, I acknowledge that that's technically what I'm doing, and thus what I am. Beverage. Okay, so we're going to want to have an entity that handles all of our art, so we can reference the art by a tag and not by the file. Then we're going to have a sequence of loads. We need to have things like movement, spawn points, positioners, all of that stuff need to be loaded before entities get loaded, because entities will reference them. Okay. We could put it all in here. I'm less of a computer guy, Skia. I have osmosed some hardware knowledge, but generally it's only surface level at best. I know somebody that swings through the Discord and through the channel now and again that it sounds like they're an electrical engineer. Which is ever so impressive and terrifying when they talk about the kind of stuff, because it is the sort of thing that, from a surface level computer user, are the sorts of things that you get told, never ever do that. Let's see. But no, I used to try to keep up with some of the hardware stuff, but I stopped. Okay, so for each one of these, we need to start constructing them. Just socket them in, one after the other. Let's start here. There's only a few interactions. Yeah, I'm aware of the existence of those and the tools that go into them, the impact of that kind of thing, the kind of board, the kind of like, child boards that you might attach. But past that, I only have like what is very publicly known kind of stuff. Interaction. Okay, so we create a new instance of it. Sometimes, Skia. Sometimes there are notable feature improvements that are relevant to me, or that are notably impressive. There are also a lot of features that end up being, yeah, that's cool and all, but I don't play any games or do anything that will actually leverage that. Like, it's super cool that you can run Minecraft as if you wanted it to be, 4K ultra resolution cinematic view. But I see no reason to do that. And thus, all of those features that enabled that when they were bleeding edge were irrelevant to me. It'd be like telling me that my motherboard or my GPU came with a dedicated AI chip. Oh boy. Point that out to me and hand me a screwdriver if you would. Hello, Sammy. I've been reprimanded. It's doing it wrong. They're all strangely at a wider orbit than normal today. Okay, so we create a new interaction. That new interaction catalog name is equal to something. We're going to create a pattern for this. I don't really want to new these each time if I can avoid it. But, oh, no, we don't have to worry about the initial new. These are the templates. Templates can exist once, doesn't hurt us. It's like we could conjure one of a given type, but we need to know the type. That's already... We're jumping through hoops that we have to jump through in advance. So for each one of these steps, we're going to have a constant character name that we're going to check and see if it's already loaded. It's already loaded. There's a problem. Pitch a fit. Otherwise, make a new one, set the values, load it in. So if we go down to our interactions, so this one is a bullet hit. So if we change this to bullet, like that. Say it is. I am going to set some enums for these. And the way that we're doing it now actually makes that better. So, bonus, yes, intended all along. Yes, hello. Hello, Sammy. She's getting intensive chin scratches. You know that? Right on the edge of their mouth onto their cheekbones kind of thing. Some of them really like that. Hey there, Starlight. Thanks, Ducky. I appreciate the compliment, and thanks for swinging through. Okay, so we call it bullet hit. Then it will be... Could waste a bunch of variables during this process. Doesn't actually hurt me to do that. But it'd become a mess long term. Can I get away with this? Okay, good. It recognizes it. So, as of right here, the coding interface knows that this is supposed to be an interaction bullet hit, not just an interaction. That's actually kind of nice. Ow, Sammy. So much ow. I'm going to have to trim your murder mitts, and you're going to be very unhappy with me. If I stop petting her, sometimes she will reach up and very lovingly sink 2 paws worth of claws into my arm in order to pull me over and remind me that that hand could be petting her. Okay, so we set that. Are there any base things in interaction that I need to set? Because this is universal. Every interaction has these. Let's look at our code here. Okay, just its catalog name. All right. Having to lean forward a little bit because Sherbet has come up here and said, hey, I want attention too. So we have Mason on camera, Ember across from my desk, Sherbet on my headrest behind my head, right behind my head now, on like leaning on my neck, and then Sammy on my lap. Let's see if we can spot the rest. Yep. All 5 are accounted for, 3 are visible. I mean, if nothing else, when Sherbet comes to visit me like this, it's a good pause and arm exercise kind of thing, because I have to reach all the way up behind my head and give him back scratches. So it's it stretches the muscles a bit. It's good. And hello there, Raptor. Let's keep the camera there and there. Hey buddy. Hey buddy. Work on the tilt a little bit there. Get it right there is what I want. Oof, okay. Okay, so we have to set the catalog name, and then each of them might have their own values. Coding, like a lot of things, Raptor, and this is a discussion we loop around to, the best way to learn is to start doing it. There are piles of free resources on the net for, how to make your first game using this tool kind of stuff. And there are plenty of those tools that are free. It's kind of like learning a language used to be a much bigger commitment. But there are now tools that you can have like on your phone to help you run through it. Easiest ones to approach for free. So Unity and Godot, I think, are good starting points. Unity is very established, assuming they don't pull some other PR nightmare move, maybe they'll recover. But Unity is out of favor right now because they've pulled some sleazy corporate stuff. Godot is in a good light at the moment and is pretty straightforward. They have some tutorials right there in their documentation on how to get started. And largely the toolkit is very similar as far as what it's capable of compared with Unity, in my experience. Unreal Engine is technically free, but boy, that's the deep end. I wouldn't suggest starting there. I believe there's one called Game Maker, which has a free version as long as you're not like distributing it for money. But if you actually intend to put the game up for sale, you got to shell out for a full version. A full version that is not cheap. It's like $100 for the pro version. The second one is Godot. That's what we're using here. So Godot. Well, hello, Ronaldo. Welcome. We're working on our game project here. Is it still functioning? Let me verify it's still functioning. Yeah. So Bullet Heaven Vampire Survivor style game. We are planning on making it so monsters swarm in and you fire projectiles at them to try to get rid of them. This is just demo behavior, or at least test behavior. I think we cap out at about 1,000 blobs. We can have a lot more of the projectiles active because they interact less. You can see here. So recently we've gotten it to where we are loading these entities much more cleanly. We've got a lot of performance enhancements put into the game. What we're working with right now is trying to get it so that there is a really stable architecture for saying, I want to spawn one of those blobs there. I want to spawn one of these mice, such that I do not have to know precisely in the code what they are and how they work. I can just say, give me the blob one. Give me the mouse one. This will become relevant because the next major milestone as far as the game's functionality is for us to actually start setting up the interface and the interactions for modifying those weapons. Right now, you can see two entities on the screen that use the architecture that we're working on. The blobs are an entity that has logic in it that says they can't step on each other, so they try to move around each other, and that they only try to move towards the player. So they have a couple of flags on them that say that they can't move over top of each other, but aside from that, they just have one way of moving: go towards the player. The mice, though, the mice are being told face a random direction and then move forward. So they pick which direction they're going to move, and then they keep going in that direction. Under the system that we've got, it's possible for us to add variations to that in. So I could tell the mouse, move in a straight line, but also try to move up. So it would be trying to move in a particular direction, but it would always drift up. You can use things like that. Oh, we've got interaction fails. Hey, we found a bug. So the mice are not interacting. Can we make that happen faster? Do you mean, Raptor, how long do you think it takes for you to... Do you mean how long would it take you to make a game, or to be proficient at doing so? Like, to be considered an expert, or just good enough? Because if it's just good enough, a very short period of time. Couple of classic examples. Pirate Software is an excellent resource for this kind of motivational phrase, and that's where I'm deriving these stories. But there are two big examples. So Undertale, which we're doing a playthrough of during the weeks here, is a famously good game. Good art, good mechanics, all kinds of great stuff about it. At the time that Undertale was originally written, Toby Fox was a terrible programmer. The code of the game is bad, straight up bad. But the end result is a very good game. So that code is entirely good enough. It did what it needed to do. Are there things that could have been done better, especially playing it again after some time? Oh, so very much. But it's still good enough, and the end result was great. The other end of the spectrum is, what does it take to make a game? Can I quickly make a good game? Or, can I quickly make a game whether other people like it or not? Yes, you very, very quickly can. The maker of Five Nights at Freddy's produced a huge number of games even within the year that he initially made FNAF. And some of those games are just trash shovelware kind of games. I believe one of the notable ones was Fart Hotel. Gameplay being as sophisticated as it sounds. But you can. It's pick up the tools, read a little bit of the, Hello World style game development tools for it, and then just hit the ground running. Try stuff, make stuff. There are videos, web pages, all kinds of stuff that might help you. But leverage the accessibility of the tools, leverage the documentation that's there, and leverage Google. Stack Overflow, developer forums, all kinds of stuff have great things that might help you solve problems. But to get out there, try it. That mentality is exactly why I started this project. I've always talked about things like, hey, wouldn't it be cool if I made a game that did this? Or if I made this game, I probably would like to see this added in or this done differently. And I finally just decided to pull the trigger on it. I did not know anything about Godot coming into this project. I have programmed before. I feel like the sort of coding I do aligns with the way that I think, and that's part of the get out there and do it, is finding a way to code and structure things for yourself that work with how you think, so that eventually you can start making the code do what you want it to do. That's right, Tess. It's, even if you start knowing nothing, eventually you're probably going to know more than... You're going to learn things. And some of those things will be painful and frustrating, and others will make it easier for you to work with stuff. But every time that happens, every new project that you start, you now have more information to work with. You might decide, I don't want to subject myself to Godot again. I'll try this other thing. You hit the ground with it, you figure out what it's capable of, and now you know that. Okay, so we're not getting that oddity where the mice aren't punching through here. We're running towards the edge of the screen because we're trying to get them. Yeah. A big part of coding is a lot of different... You can pretty much view it as a lot of different coding languages have gimmicks to them. They might have a special feature that is easy to do in that language, but that's effectively just a way to do a thing. The existence of that thing, the idea that you can do that and that there's patterns for doing it, is pretty much universal, or is often universal. So once you know that thing exists and how in general to do it, then you can start applying that to other scenarios. All right, Raptor. I know that there are a lot of folks from kind of around the world that we encounter here, and I do frequently hear that it's very much late at night for some of them. Okay, we're not seeing it again. I suspect that's going to appear again. So, we're gonna slide that over there. We'll address that time bomb in a little bit. Okay, so then enemy take damage has base health and health. So we want to load that one in too. So this is base bullet hit. By doing this, I have created the template object. So then say not interactions. This is why we need to set up a like an enum for this. Welcome back, Skia. So, okay, so if one of this name doesn't already exist, we're going to set out to add it. So we load it in. So this becomes a basic shell for us now. Now we can go into our interaction template here, and this is an enemy take damage type. An enemy. And it has a base health. Okay. In theory, it will now not explode. Now, the fact that when they collide, the blobs are disappearing says it's not exploding. By doing this, I no longer need interactions to load, because all of that is defined right here. This is good. This is good. I like this more. Yay, we're doing a thing. All right, on to spawn points. Where? Ah, that's right. Okay. Hello, dude. Welcome. Spawn point. Same general structure here. Ah, Raptor, that one is Mason. He is my second biggest cat. He is very timid. Spawn on player. There we go. Let's see. How much does it cost weekly to feed the cats? It will depend heavily. It will depend heavily on how much wet food they get, since that is a multiplier. I try every couple days or so to make sure that they get some wet food. Between the 5 of them, a couple of 5-ounce tins. Ends up being like like $1 or two. It's not the fancy wet food. Uh, it's essentially food that comes in a can. It'll be wet pet food is much more closely is much more close to the meat side of the spectrum than the dry side of the spectrum, like kibble. It's generally better for them because it doesn't have a lot of additives, as many additives. There are wet foods out there that still add a lot of like materials that aren't necessarily great for them. In particular, a lot of dry foods add a lot of salt. And if you're going to get a lot of dry food, you need to make sure that they have lots and lots of water available to them, like constantly. Because you can get like kidney disease and whatnot if they aren't getting enough water to counteract that. Cats can get real sensitive to it. And hello, Daptu. Yeah. Thompson, I have 5 cats total. On the camera currently are Sammy and Mason. Okay. And you are spawn at 0. So this is one of the cases. Spawn at 0 is a type called spawn at fixed. And what we do with spawn at fixed is this little guy right here. The spawn position is equal to a vector 2.0. These are all of my cats. All of my current cats are shelter cats. And Thompson, we are making a game. A Vampire Survivor style game. Right now, in particular, what I'm making is a data loading structure so that I can set up stuff and things. I can set up like this power up is called this, or this enemy is called this, and if I want to spawn it, I reference it by name instead of having to hard code exactly what it should be. So I can get this result by saying spawn at 0 instead of having to know to do exactly this. And we have to do this because we found an idiosyncrasy in the way that the Godot editor works. Spawn on spawner path. Spawn on spawner path doesn't need anything special. Okay, so we have all of our spawners done. We know that spawner path is working because the blobs are orbiting in like this. We know that spawn on player is working because the mice are spawning where we're standing. And we know that spawn at 0 is working because the player appeared on that red tile there. Yay! Got to get our overconfidence in early because it's these later ones that are going to be the tough ones. Entity is going to be the big one. Does require a particular degree of focus to sit down, you know? That's right, Skia. What we're doing right now is building up to. We're getting oh so close to the weapon upgrade system. And I was mentioning earlier, Thompson, a big part of doing things like learning to code or any other like skill set or knowledge set that you want to obtain is figuring out how to do it for your given situation. There are circumstances that make it harder. There are circumstances that make it easier, but in general, you can. You just have to figure out how to make it work. And that almost never, I would say it would never be, try to force yourself to do it a way that doesn't work for you. It's a common problem with public education systems. Okay, so our first positioner. This one. This is not Roblox. This is Godot. Yes, I am located in the US, Raptor. Catbot Factory set up its facilities here in the US for definitely not tax evasion purposes. This body is about 3. The mental engram added to it later in a completely non-destructive and consensual way is older than that. So Thompson, there's the short form that you are watching through right now. There is a widescreen version that I have a link to pinned in chat. And then there's also a Twitch stream going. The tall form one is there primarily because people scrolling on their phone can see it. But if you'd like to watch on a bigger screen or something like that, then feel free to switch. Base max bullets and base spread. Okay. Okay, and that's the only positioner we currently have. Okay. Hello, Nugget. Still always going to remember that that kindergarten game with your name Nugget. Some time ago I poked Unity, but I never really kind of followed through with it. And after the whole PR fiasco that was Unity trying to sneak a contract change in that was not really good for their users, I decided, like, hey, if I'm actually going to pull the trigger, let's learn to do Godot instead of learning to do Unity. Some time ago, I dabbled with trying to make my own, like, graphic stuff, just in learning some basic graphics coding, but I would not recommend doing that. Yeah, I tried doing some OpenGL stuff. Um, it's fascinating, but at the same time, manually binding textures in lighting to vertices in the proper order is not something that I want to have to code. I remember a final exam or a major exam in a course. There was one question. It was a long form. You had to write it out in pencil, that was render a T with these dimensions using the OpenGL function calls that we have learned so far. And I don't think that they actually considered what the question actually entailed. One, it absolutely destroyed the business majors that were in the course at the time, because those poor fools thought, hey, OpenGL graphics coding and like intro to game development kind of stuff, that'll be an easy thing to add to my business major. Despite the fact that the course was required to be paired with algorithms and data structures, which is a CS track course, not a minor track course. But I think it ended up. Let me do a quick bit of head math here. So, at a minimum, you would have 16 vertices, and in the OpenGL libraries that we had access to, coded in C++, it would require no fewer than, I think it was like 4 calls per, and they all needed to be done in a very particular order. But it was like a full page of spatial math and movement to define the vertex, all of that kind of stuff. And it was all written by hand, no IDE to help you or anything like that. And I did it, came up and asked them, it's like, are you sure this is what you meant to have us do? Ever thought of playing first-person shooters? I'm not a big fan of first-person shooters. I have come to like third-person ones, especially when there's like a cover mechanic. A good cover mechanic. Tactical shooters, as it were. But overall, I'm more of like a strategy game kind of guy. And, well, I would say more of an RPG. If I'm going to play an action game, it's usually I load up an RPG where the power scaling lets you get really, really strong and just go on a rampage. When I play Assassin's Creed games, it's not about being stealthy. It's about body count. Skyrim is okay, Skia. And I think the reason that I would only call it okay is because of the engine that Bethesda refuses to update or replace. Skyrim is held back by the company that made it and the engine that it was made in. Doesn't have an actual finished title yet, Daptu. The project title is Nyanite Survivors. It is just a working title. Movement objects. I used to play first-person shooters in the past. It's definitely a skill set that has rusted quite thoroughly for me. Movement is a movement object. Some folks and I have been playing, what is it called, Tess? Songs of Conquest? It's kind of a very, very sprite art, Heroes of Might and Magic kind of vibe. Yeah. I mean, ultimately, the plight of Unity as in the company behind it is actually kind of sad at the moment. Not in a genuine emotional sense, but more of a it's sad that it's happening kind of way. Um, the the interests of the company and the interests of the people in the company have come into conflict based on the reporting that I have read. Uh, that is, there are people with stock in similar in the company that are just trying to get out. So they're trying to maximize short-term stock value and sell, and then get out as quick as they can. So they're doing things that have the possibility of short-term benefit, but are catastrophically damaging even in medium term, like very shortly after. All right, Skia. Skia mentioned Ancestors. I think that's the one with, like, you play as apes. I've looked at that one. I don't know if I ever want to pull the trigger on playing it, but it is an interesting concept. What's the game gonna be called? Not sure. That'll ultimately be decided when we approach when we reach the point of, like, distribution, because there are some elements of that can be a pitfall. There might be trademark issues, that kind of thing. So, since I don't want to do stuff like try to register trademarks really early because they're not free, I'll just wait. First movement object is move to player. Those that weren't there when this was initially created, movement rate is in squares on the screen. So if we do something like these squares are purely cosmetic at the moment. I don't intend to have, like, this metal grid as the only background, but each of those squares is a 16 by 16 sprite, and they are blown up to 6x size on the screen to force a 1080p window. So in world coordinates, one 16 by 16 square is 96 units. 96 screen pixels. It's what allows for smooth sprite movement, for one. But I have declared that is the base unit of movement, is 1 square per second. So if this were 2, it would be 2 squares per second. That kind of thing. So move straight line, move to player, very similar. Move spiral, not similar. There are similar elements. There are shared variable types, but this is where they get different. So if we look, they don't have the base movement rate. We have angle change, growth, and max radius. Movement. Give that a poke to be sure. This is the Godot scripting language. This is called GD script. There are some elements of it I like, some elements that are just like, I'm not a fan because of the kind of coding I originally learned. Like, I don't like indentation-based code blocks. I would prefer that they be discrete, curly braces, you know. That's not the end of the world, but making them discrete does help. I don't like loosely typed languages, and GDScript can be loosely typed like JavaScript and many others. Variables are just buckets, but at least with GDScript we can do this. I can say this bucket is this type. That lets the IDE use helper text, and it actually makes it so the compiler enforces it. If I say this has to be this kind of object, it won't. It will fail if you try to do it otherwise. This is a good thing. So move spiral is what it sounds like. It spirals out from its point of origin. It rotates the angle on the circle rotates at this pace. The circle expands at this pace in squares. And it will expand until this many squares are reached. If you set this, it becomes an orbit. It becomes a circle around wherever it is. So move spiral actually is also orbit wherever it appears or whatever it's aiming at. Okay, we have straight line, move to player. We also need move player. Move player is easy. Move player has no variables that you really pass in. It translates keyboard input. Had to translate for a moment. Hello, IDK. Yep. Let's see here. You're in mobile form, so you might not be able to see it. But in the upper right here, there's a little toggle for compatibility mode, mobile mode, and forward plus. I can't remember which of the other two is one of them is very PC focused. It's like compile this to be Windows PC. Mobile is maximum compatibility with other platforms, so like Android and whatnot. I'm told the IDE actually exists on mobile too, which is interesting. So there are various levels to how you can set it up to run, which is neat. IDK, this is the Godot engine. Okay, so we have those. We're going to add double speed in here. It has a multiplier value. It is a movement modifier speed multiplier. And that means it has a multiplier value. So movement in this game is handled in a chain. Ideally, you have early in the chain some sort of targeting, like choose a random direction, choose an entity like a monster to target the player, any number of things like that. And then you have patterns for movement, like move in a straight line, move in a spiral. Movement modifiers are a little different in that what they do is they change speed and scale values. And different things obey those values differently. Almost everything obeys speed. So when a spiral's speed is changed, it will rotate faster. So even the ones that you can just feed art into are game engines in their own right. But if you're looking to do some coding, there's actually still a really wide variety. I should have asked this the prior time somebody asked which engine I would suggest. If you just want to learn coding in general and mess around with game dev, Godot and Unity are good choices at the time. As of like how things are going now, I would say Godot. If instead you want to set out like, I have a game that I want to make, the first question would be what kind of game and what kind of graphics. Like, are we talking I want to make a photorealistic military shooter, or are we saying I want to create a low-res pixel platforming game? Or something else. Should be all of our movement objects. We're gonna... Wait, we don't have our targeters in yet. We need our targeters. Yeah, so high fidelity graphics, very precise movement, that kind of thing. You can accomplish those in other engines. Reason I ask as far as like super high fidelity, like top tier graphics tricks, ultimately you're going to be drifting towards heavier platforms and toolkits. Going down the road of Unreal Engine is essentially hard mode. You can accomplish amazing things, but that's going to be the deepest end you could jump in at. If you just start with like some simpler graphics or something like that, maybe some assets so that you're not having to deal with all of that, you could start with just about anything. So let's see here. So you want to do that. It's then you should be able to accomplish the basics of that kind of thing with any of the engines. So Godot, Unity, Game Maker, that kind of thing. Unless you have a particular tool set in mind, like things it can do in particular, then just start with any of them. Primary reason that I ask is things like every now and then you have somebody that has like, I want to make a JRPG, I want it to be sprite graphics, and I want to focus on story and monsters and whatnot. RPG Maker is right out of the box excellent for that. I want to make a visual novel. There are toolkits for that. They are robust and they offer all of the features. RPG Maker even has a Python scripting component now. So if you want to really customize it, you can. But if you're looking at like, hey, I want to make some sort of action game or similar, then you'd probably want to use something a little more robust than that. So, like, I think it's Game Maker, Godot, and Unity are good kickoff points. I'd still suggest Godot. If not, then maybe like Game Maker if you like some of its features. Game Maker will incur an extra cost if you hit the point of wanting to make money off of it. Godot would require a download. Either, I think there's an App Store version of the Godot engine for your phone, but you can just download it off their website for free. Same with Unity, as far as downloading it. Same with Unreal Engine, I believe. Those you can just download. Game Maker has a free version on Steam, but like I said, there is a actual like license that you would eventually have to purchase if you went all the way with it. And there are others out there, but like I said though, are you familiar with coding already, IDK? Because outside of like the drag and drop scripting and whatnot of Unreal Engine, if you actually have to do any code, you're jumping into C++. And if you're already comfortable with it, great. If you're not, that is the least forgiving code option out there, unless you're like, I want to write stuff in assembler, or I want to write low-level shaders. That is a language that will... that is a vindictive language. Segment faults for everybody. Very powerful language. Again, if you want to go all in and learn some of those, that's a good skill to have. Here we have a target player, which is just a target player. So we'll take one of these. That it is target player. No worries. Oh. Back in the day, when people had to submit programs for grading on floppy disks, dealing with segment faults was always one of those fun things, because one of the most amusing test cases that you would always pass in is to take a function that is supposed to take a value and pass in nothing and see what happens. And the answer was often segment fault. Worst case, you could get weird things. like people trying to do pointer math to mess with an array, resulting in strange things. Shaders are something that I will eventually want to poke at with this, because there are elements of stuff that I want to be able to put on the screen that I don't want to have be full entities to track. Like, there's no reason for them to be a individual creature kind of thing. Like, I want to put text on the screen. I want to put some fire effects on the screen, but I don't need a fire entity that is going to survive for a period of time. Just put an explosion graphic there. We've already handled the hit. Okay, so we've got targeters, we've got modifiers, we've got movements. Did we break it? Oh, we're moving. Yay. Okay, these are the ugly ones. Because while those movements only had a couple of variables, let me pull up the entity. We got to make sure all of this stuff is filled in properly for an entity. Not out of the question. We can still handle this. Just, there's some stuff to do. Interestingly, I think I found a better way to do this one as well. I've never heard of that. I've never heard of the cat-like coding blog. Tell me of this thing. They have a catalog name. They have their navigation collision layer. Hello, Sherbet. To make the headrest purr for a little bit here. So for this navigation collision layer and a void mask, I think... Cool. Yeah, eventually I do need to get the shaders rolling. There is... Here, let me... You might be interested in these shenanigans. So, let me run the game. Okay, so game is active. We have all of our global objects up here. Then we go in, and you see that there's all these things running around on the screen. In basic toolkits like Unity and Godot, all of these would be individual entities. They would be nodes in a tree or something like that, objects in space that are part of the engine. It can usually track them. So I'm going to look at our zones. This is the game state. There is no player object. There are no mice. There are no enemies. If I turn on visible collision shapes, there are no collision shapes. Visible navigation, still, we can't see visible navigation. The reason for that is that in the background, there is a great deal of footwork happening that we are doing because the node structure, the default logic for all of that, is more expensive to deal with. creating a node on the tree, keeping track of it, that kind of thing, is not cheap as far as handling the logic. Now, I don't know that we actually needed to go as far as we did, but we're already in so deep, there's no reason to turn back. Actually, we can see it inside the entities code. So we're doing things like this. Instead of telling Godot, hey, give me a kinematic body 2D and give it a collision shape that's a circle that's this big, that kind of thing, we're telling the physics server, hey, I have this shape object that I want you to create a shape that looks like this. I want it to be this big. I want you to attach it to this area. Hey, navigation server, I want there to be an entity. It's called, give me the ID for that. We are talking directly to the underpinnings of Godot's kind of world system here. That is much less expensive. It is much... There's a lot of code that goes on to make it play nice. But it's very high performance comparatively. When we paint things, assuming we're going to paint it, we go through and we say, okay, do I need to rotate it? Do I need to change the transform? Which part of the sprite am I going to render? Which coordinates on the sprite sheet does that represent? All of this stuff. We're doing this in math on our own instead of using like an animated sprite object, because an animated sprite is a node. It's a node 2D. It inherits all of these layers of extra overhead. I do not make any tutorials, IDK. I don't know that I can't say that I wouldn't, but I don't know that I would take it on now, because I would be as detail obsessed as I normally get about that kind of thing. But I think it's Asiac on another on the Tall Form stream there mentioned a blog here called Catlight Coding that does have tutorials on Unity and Godot if you're interested in those kind of things. But this is much higher performance, and then on top of doing this, there is another layer that we do, and this is our pools. This is actually a common thing that gets done a lot, but we don't just create and destroy the things on the fly. So instead of, when we make one, it's like, oh, okay, here's one, unless we have a bunch of them piled up. If we've already created a whole bunch of them and they're no longer in use, we'll reuse one. If we get rid of them and we're not over limit, we'll keep it to reuse it later. This is a big performance savings, and it does allow us to hit the number of entities that we get going in this. Let's see if we can make it bonkers here. Okay, so if you can see them, the numbers in the upper left, the two numbers are, I believe, one of them is bullets and one of them's blobs. The middle number is the buffer for entities, which both bullets and blobs are. So there are always, at the moment, there are always at least 100 things waiting to be reused. It's a queue for reuse. And then the third number is our FPS. So if I start moving, things on the right of the screen can get culled faster because they'll hit the edge. So we often see an increase in the number of blob removals. I'm making a Bullet Heaven or a Vampire Survivor style game, IDK. So this is the kind of behavior that you would expect. Not this in particular. This is all like testing logic here, or visuals. But monsters swarming in. Okay, we are getting some bullets that are in a dead state and are not getting removed. We just saw one. That's weird. We're going to have to keep an eye on that, because what that implies is that they're stuck in either a iframe state or they are in some other state that is causing problems in that regard. It shouldn't be that they've taken so many hits that it's negative. We have a failsafe for that. But it seems like it might be iframe states repeating. Yep. So off the edge of the screen, there's essentially a limit. I think it's a screen and a half or 2 screens to the sides is what amounts to a kill zone around the field that removes them if they get in it. Well, thanks for swinging through, IDK. I appreciate it. But yeah. Okay. Now we need to start adding the entities. There's really only 3 of them that I need to worry about, so... Enemy. Enemy is just an entity type, but I've given it a specific class to try to enforce this is exactly what I'm creating, and this is exactly what we're fetching. But this is just a child class of entity. Maybe at some point there will be extra on enemies. That's always a possibility. We might add some default constructor logic to them. Such that, like, oh, all enemies have this kind of stuff, but for the time being. Enemy. New. Oh my god. New one. We are also going to need to go into the code for enemy and make sure that we have set all of these to be internal variables. To make sure we have those underscores in place so it's very clear from the outside. Don't mess with these ones. There's no specific notation that says this is a member variable. I'm sorry, that this is a private variable, to my knowledge. For all I know, there is. It's just I've never seen it referenced in code or in the documentation. So we need... I think we can get away with this. Um, Creatively, I have done things like model painting. Um, I used to like to make custom Warhammer models. Lots of kit bashing, that kind of stuff. Was fun. Haven't gotten back into that. I do one day want to set up something for the stream to do like hand cam painting and model assembly, that kind of stuff. Once I figure out a way to not leak toxic gas into the factory, I want to get rolling with like a 3D printer in order to do that kind of stuff. Okay, so we can have textures, but it's not quite what we want. We want to reference them by name. I think we just have to use a dictionary here. Yeah. Dictionaries are so messy. Nope, nope, we're doing the same thing. We're doing the same thing. Doing the same thing. Uh, a resin 3D printer. Technically, even the what is it called? Even the deposition one. So even like filament 3D printers give off a little bit of like the melting and cooling process gives off a bit of gas, and it's not great to inhale a lot. Resin 3D printers, the ones that are like they UV activate layers and layers of resin, lift it up, put it back in the pool, that kind of thing. Those give off a lot of toxic gas. The resin itself is not good to touch. Like, you don't want it on your skin, and you don't want to breathe in the fumes off of it, whether it's being activated or not. So in order to get that rolling, you need both a temperature-controlled environment, because the resin is very vulnerable to temperature variation as far as end result, but you also need it to be fantastically well ventilated. You will see people say, oh, you just need a carbon filter. That's not nearly enough. The amount of the stuff in the air that those produce is more than those carbon filters can handle. And since I have small animals all around, I do not want to expose them to that. So eventually I'll get some sort of, negative pressure sealed hood kind of mechanism going on. Hello, Sky. I still see Kibble over there, so you should be fine. Okay, so we're going to load textures. We're going to need to get a way to load them in here. we're kind of six one way, half a dozen the other here. So, for example, I don't want to do that. This is asking for trouble. It won't kill you, but it can cause health problems. And if you use it extensively, unless you've got it far away from like where you eat and live and that kind of stuff, it can build up. I saw somebody trying to like showing that the carbon filters aren't good enough for it, and that they took big industrial like 1 foot by 1 foot cubes of carbon filter and ran the airflow through the things and around the things, and they still didn't get it down to safe exposure levels, like clean exposure levels. So yeah, heavy ventilation, and it needs to be ventilated into an area that you don't care what's going on over there. But once you get it working, it's a fantastic form. You get really high detail results out of it. It's pretty cool. So I think we need an export collection for it, and I think it's going to have to be a dictionary. Hello, Devon. And hello, Shrek. Oh, I think it needs to be a dictionary. I hate that so much. Is what it is. So the key is a string, and the have a texture as a default type in here. Oh. Okay. So I don't like a lot about that. Oh. There are so many failure surfaces involved here. I can't set the key, that kind of thing. Um, but I don't have a good way to load them otherwise. Like there's nothing about this texture itself. It, seeing if there's anything about this. Um, yeah, we originally had a little bit more. If electronic is really accurate enough, but we had a very different vibe to the music, and we played a game called For Your Tranquility, which is a game where it's a game in an anthropomorphic animal world where you do autopsies. We had to solve a frog murder. But to the point. The game had piano kind of like the somber piano string music, and it kind of clicked. So this is now our default. I could create wrappers for these things. Oh. Wait. Resource name. Can I set that? I think it's letting me set it. That would be a shame. That would have been excellent. Yeah. Object is read only, but it's not intrinsically a... There are... People have discovered that there are markets for games that don't have what I would call traditional objectives. There isn't really a... The gameplay is not like an active interaction. It is not... no running, jumping, climbing on trees, getting points, collecting items necessarily. Sometimes they're just traversing the environment and seeing it. For some period, derisively called a walking simulator, But that is a legitimate genre. How are we going to do this? We could create another resource, but that leads us down the same problem path we've got, where we need a way to concretely refer to a resource without referring to it by path. We're dodging that with these code objects, but eventually import panel. Was hoping that if there's something we can do to define what this is called in the import, you know? But it doesn't look like there's a way to do that. Is there a way that we can create this object? Okay. What we're thinking on right now is I want to have a collection of these images so that I do not have to reference specifically this image path. I want to be able to load this image in and say, by the nature of this object that I have imported into the system, this one is called the blob image, and I want to get that. Is there something we can do for that? Because I want to be able to move that object, that imported thing, and not have everything explode. So right now, Tess, this PNG is imported in. Muffy, this is in GD script. This thing that I imported in is just it's fixed, and I can't give it any sort of identifier. So the only way that I can currently refer to it is by its texture object. But that texture object has no identifying marks. This is a texture 2D, actually. So, like, I have resource name and path, but how I reference it in code would either be that or through an import. Well, export. Or through this. But if I want to go this route, then I'm manually defining that it's okay. Every time I want to add one, I say its key is this, and its value is an arbitrary object, which happens to be a texture 2D. This is not out of the question. This is our fallback point. It's just ugly. But since I can't name this thing, Click on the mouse, please. Why? Each enemy sprite will be its own image. So hoping that would be something we could do there, but it is not. Yeah, worst case, I just have to specify them here. Alright, that's what we're going to do. Yep. Currently, the pattern that I've got is a sprite sheet is 6 frames long. In theory, I can change that. I just don't. I haven't put in logic for anything other than 6 frames. So the first one is idle, the second one is move. I may add more animations later. There might be like a death animation or something like that. As thing. So we have this concept. We are going to put in a... Hey there, Drew. There's a reason in a lot of areas where water can pool, especially like retaining pools and whatnot, that there will be warnings of things like, "Hey, there's deep water here," both for liability purposes, but also just this is deeper than you might think. Okay, we know where that path is. We can cull this down, notably. Hey there, Prue. Welcome. It's red right now because I haven't set it to a constant, and it won't like that. Hey there, hear you. Stream time is always kitty nap time. Hear you, Yui. Isn't... Is that one of the protagonists from Gundam Wing? Yeah, that's a good reminder, folks. If you're on YouTube and you're looking at the shorts view, there is a widescreen view. I have links to the other stream in each one pinned, so you can switch over. Let's see. We can currently see 3 of 5 kitty cats. Weapon path. You know what? We are going to make it so that the weapon path and the upgrade path are the same thing. Yeah, yeah. Tall format, even with the text zoomed in a whole lot, you're not going to be able to see as much of the text if you'd like to see the code. Do that. I think I can do it that way. Technically, string calculation, I will probably load these elsewhere, but the fact that they're constants shouldn't really be an issue. Okay, so we have the paths. Let's... So we load that texture. So I could set resource name here, but this is technically irrelevant. Hey there, Demon Wolves. Crossed over in the next day, huh? Hello from the world of yesterday. Time zones are a trip, aren't they? Okay, we load the texture and then we say textures. Equal to texture. What's your question, Demon? I will not do a face reveal. I do have some old videos where you can see my hand. Primarily from cat pets, you know. Blob. Okay. Those. So for items, we're going to use the item path. That. I have a folder for players because eventually I do want to have alternate kind of player characters. So we've got a some future proofing for that. And we won't need the terrain folder just yet, but we'll get to that point. Two weapons, we have the blob. Okay, so now we should be able to start loading entities. Hey there, Jellybean. So when we're creating the entities, this is when all of this starts coming together. I think we'll actually just have the player the player entity template here as well. Exactly the same as this for the most part. Just going to change some naming. Player and entity just yet. It's just an entity. Fat finger all the things. Oh, hey there. Well, thank you, Ace. Now, is it Asiac? Trouble pronouncing that. But in any event, welcome to membership. The primary thing that unlocks is channel emotes. And technically earlier access to any shorts that I upload or anything like that. Like this. But thank you again. I appreciate it. Okay, so this lets us refer to the player very specifically. That's good. Okay. Technically, this type of entity doesn't need a catalog name. But we're going to do it just to keep the pattern, you know? Let me check something real quick to see if that actually worked. I think there's still a problem with the cues here. No, I think that worked actually. Neat. Hooray. It can get that way with screen handles a lot. Pronunciation of them isn't always the first consideration when somebody makes them. This is technically allowing us to circle back around and do some cleanup with constants, but it's one of those like, oh boy, I get to redo that. Yay, question mark. So these are types, not specific ones, by the way. These are used to pool them because you need to pool them with similar classes. Okay, constant, shape type. All right, we'll do that. Okay. This will be an opportunity to go through entity and clean up things and make sure that the member variables are set as well. So this is an area that we no longer need to change because this mask is a known commodity. I can set this up differently. Uh, like here, I can probably set this up differently, but we'll see how we do it. For the time being, these are known commodities. This is why we need constants. Spawn at 0. I want to have big enum constants for this. If you do have a solid way to pronounce your name, folks, and I'm getting it wrong, let me know. I can I can try to do it. There is a limit. There are nuances of some languages that I just don't know how to form the sound, so I may get some of those off. But I would like to try to be at least in the neighborhood of correct on a name. That is assuming that it isn't one of those haha got you. It's, it's spelled Steven, but it's actually pronounced Bob. Spawn point. No ingoing or outcoming yet. move player. Okay. Zero move player. Nothing about positioning. So let me go back up into the sprite. This is 1, 1, 1, 1. Yeah. We are explicitly declaring it just in case. It technically defaults to that. But might as well. Vector 2, 16, 16. Frame, offset. Okay. We're creating a basic template for an entity here. Hello there, Payne. Welcome. Positioning. Oof. Interaction. If you're not familiar, Payne, we are making a game. It's a bullet heaven game. It's like, like Vampire Survivors, if you're more familiar with that. We are currently doing a lot of the... We are continuing to do a lot of the skeleton work underneath all of this stuff. It exploded. Oh, that's why. So you can't see the player character in the middle there because this is a kind of catastrophe case scenario where there's so much offense coming out that it's irrelevant whether you can see or not. Okay, this tells us this works. We need this loaded early because this is going to be... Textures are potentially going to be referenced all over the place. I may end up putting them in... I'd have to change weapon to item. We'll get that later. We're going to have a quick break, and then I'm going to resume. We're going to push on towards the end after that. So be right back. And I'm back. So I see a Captain Confusion swung through. Thanks for swinging through. Um, to your question, Asiac, am I doing the entire game? I am doing occasional things off stream. Usually it's a, this is very broken and I don't want to spend time just staring angrily at the screen trying to puzzle out why it's broken on stream. But otherwise, we've been doing the whole thing on stream. Are on. Yeah, this is day 54. Thinking. It's doing a thing. We have the incoming, we have the outgoing, we have all of that set up. We need lifespan. Okay, all of this mess defines what an entity is. So I could pre-set up some of this. Yeah. And all right. I assume all these have to be populated. We do recite the classic mantra of software development, and that's why does that work and why does that not work? These are bit masks, essentially. They are this kind of thing. Oh, that's tricky. Get thrown off by that. Movement. Positioners, incomings, outgoing, lifespan. I think we've got all of them here. It's 1 point. Coming. Going. Lifespan. That should be everything that's needed to define them. Okay. So then when we load the player, we're actually going to call entity load create an entity. Size. Angle. Then Mason wanted some attention. Navigation values in, so now we need this.
point.
Positioners. Incoming and outgoing. And then our lifespan. I do intend to publish this game, yes. Zero. Copy this. So this is specifically the navigation collision layer. It is not the collision layer. In that if they were to bump, they don't necessarily trigger a collision if this matches. It's that this is what I am, and this is what I avoid. So for the case of monsters, they are a 3 and they avoid a 3 kind of thing. I'm sorry, they're not a 3. They are a, I think a 4, something like that. Well, thank you. I really appreciate it, Asiak. Exactly. It's very particular, Laura. It's very particular. I am streaming with 2 streams on YouTube. You are in the tall or kind of short form stream on YouTube. There is a link to the wide form. I'm also streaming on Twitch. Okay, so this, if not, has to be unique to each one. Okay. Okay, so we get that. We're going to go into load items. All right, can I rename this? Hello, Clement. We are making a game. See if it. Actually, it won't. It won't run right now, but yeah. Because we don't have the enemies loaded, but we're making a game like Vampire Survivors. Solve these for legibility for a moment. That cat's name is Sammy. Let's see here. From your POV, upper left is Ember, then lower left is Sammy, and lower right is Sky. We cannot see Mason or Sherbet right now. There are 5 cats in total. Opinions on cheese. I do enjoy a little cheese. I have very mundane cheese tastes, like Colby Jack is a preference of mine. We take this. Walk you here. Do that. Excellent. Item as item. Item. American. Actually, it no longer matters that they are a weapon or not. There is actually zero distinction between an entity and a weapon at this point. %. Which is okay. Did we find oil today? Almost certainly. The nation could absolutely not function without it. And not even just on a, fuel consumption level. I heard some people put it on their pancakes. Okay, what is that texture called? It's weapon mouse. Okay. Is target random direction. Player is an outgoing, which is interactions. I think it's just bullet hit. Yeah. And we're going to give it a lifespan of 10 here, just to ensure that they don't linger too much. That is actually something yes. It's eventually one of the things that I've got to do is bind a texture to some types of movements, because I will be using like an inventory texture for them. Like draw this kind of thing. Laura, I don't have the affiliate monies thing set up on Twitch. Sorry for the late answer there. So that option isn't actually available. Okay, so now we've got that. Now we need to do the same with the enemy. one's texture, enemy blob. Let's move to player, I think. Doesn't have an incoming. I'm sorry, it doesn't have an outgoing as an incoming. This is GD script. It has pieces of a lot of others. You can actually code. You can use C# libraries in the Godot engine. I'm just currently not. Its enemy take damage? I really want there to be that third E in enemy for some reason. Enemy take damage. Okay. On spawner. Okay. They have no lifespan. They live for as long as they want. Yep. I mean, game engines are a huge leap forward. I'm sorry. These generalized game engines are a huge leap for the accessibility of the process. In-house game engines can be excruciating. Okay, in the entity logic, we're going to look into constants, and it is... Can I just look up this? Yeah. Okay, it is 4 and 4 for that. And then so catalog gets loaded first after globals. Sorry, constants. Global nodes I'm not really doing a lot with, but... Well, thank you, Clement. I hope you had a good time, and I do hope to see you next time then. Thank ye. Okay, so then in Player Factory... For the time being, there is a single player entity. Eventually, we're going to be able to create other ones. But for the time being, there is a single one. So when we go into our Player Factory, instead of player template here, we're going to do function ready. Template is equal to catalog dot player. Enemy blob. Cleaning up, cleaning up. Ah, okay. We missed a step. I think there's part of the pattern I can use to clean this up by having a string, which is the entity name or the entity identifier, that we can define before we go into the if and say if enemy has enemy identifier. So I only need to fill it in once, you know? Right. Ing. Only mouse needs to rotate to face true. Ta-da! Ooh, okay. So, what did we accomplish today? Well, thanks for swinging through, and thanks again for joining the Nyanites there, Asiak. Again, really appreciate it. Okay, so what we did today is we have removed the idea that our entities need to be resources. We're actually going to be able to go through and remove that. They are just classes. This can have some added benefit as it removes further overhead from those objects. It has created a framework where if I wanted to, I could move this stuff into JSON or similar. The definition of an object. There are some bits that we would need to worry about if we moved it into that. But at the very least, I am able to go in and say, like, hey, here is a list of all of the items being loaded in with their variables. I can manipulate that. This is good. This is good. Yeah. That puts us that much closer to manipulating the inventory. So after we get a little bit of scrub down as far as defining the names as constants, I think we can get back on track into the concept of inventory so that we can start like having objects in the inventory and potentially interacting with them on screen. Yeah. If I had to choose between coffee and T-Pain, it would be tea. Though, frankly, the only type that I like is chai. Particularly chai latte. some light stuff like like a lemon or a very faint herbal, that kind of thing, can be nice. Definitely not like black tea or anything in that vein. Definitely not green tea. I do not favor bitter. Doesn't need to be super sweet. It's a little kind of lemony. That would be good. Oh, but yes. And hello, Viola. That's true. That's a possibility there, Laura. Fraggy, we're doing well. We're just wrapping up. We got done with our... So it wasn't quite a ripped up the floorboards and burned down the foundation kind of change, but we did have to make a substantial restructuring. It's not 100% done, but functionally, we are back where we started today with more ability to move forward cleanly. This is good. Let's see. Next stream is going to be on Tuesday. We're probably going to have Undertale streams at the same times again, so probably Monday and Friday, and programming on the other days. Hey there, Frost. Welcome. Let's see here. For our next coding objectives, it is going to be towards moving toward that inventory thing. So I need to get some constants, so naming the referring to movement types in similar by name becomes easier. I will probably put those constants in the catalog, actually, alongside their relevant load scripts, so that we can easily find them and categorize them. So it'd be like catalog.enemies. Blob, and it would give me the enemy blob name. Yeah. All right. Well, I do hope everybody had a good time today. If you did and you haven't already, consider liking, following, subscribing, all that good stuff. Hopefully it'll help you find the stream again in the future. I already went over the plans, but next stream is Tuesday, and it will probably be Undertale. We'll get the schedule out as soon as I can today or tomorrow. All right. I hope I hope you have a good rest of your day. Goodbye, everyone.